Every sail is made up of three, in this case 4 pieces. The foot of the sail, the luff of the sail, the head, and the leech. They are suggesting that you make up the sail and lap it over, probably using white glue. See, they have a nice tight joint here, one that I can't get. And then coming afterwards with that brown rope supplied to the kit and sewing it onto the edge. I am going to do it differently. I am going to sew the rope into the fold, and then when I tie the sail to the boom, I'll use a needle and go right through the sail, because that's really how it's done in real life. The rope is not added to the outside, it's on the inside with the sail wrapped around it. And this diagram shows you how you would secure the bottom of the sail to the spanker boom, and I'm going to follow this almost identically. All these lines are going to be drawn on pencil because that's the simplest and easiest way to do it, including these pieces here. I'm not quite sure yet how I'm going to deal with the reefing lines, although the boat only has one installed. You just need to be careful. Any mistake is going to be hard to recover from, so just take your time. Coming back to the key measurements, this measurement from here to here in the construction of the sail is probably the most important measurement, because these 2 blocks here, which pull the spanker gaff up, you really would like to have a little more space than I have here, and I would really have preferred this to be about 5 millimeters further down, so that this is really quite tight here. The tack on the mainsail goes through a little hole in the boom and comes back to this cleat here. So what that allowed me to do is to tie the end on here permanently, and then I can adjust by pulling this in tighter and tighter until I get it as close to the hole as possible, and the hole is right up in the jaws. This diagram shows how you would secure the edge of the sail. It's a little loop, and the rope is run along the edge. Each one has a little loop with a separate line that attaches it back either to the boom or to the mast or to the top of the spanker boom. And this was my reference to, I really would have preferred this down a little more, so that this block here, there's a little more rope between it to keep the tension tight. Again, there's a very slight hole here with a knot on it, and in this case I pull this one back up the spanker boom and tied it off at the end here. In this case I tied this knot first and then use the knot at the end to tension the sail tight on the spanker gaff. Not ideal, but it seems to work. This is an excellent diagram of how you would attach the end to the spanker boom, and it's self-explanatory. I'm not sure we couldn't do this great detail, and I'm not sure we could make such a neat loop at the edge, at the top of the head of the sail. A similar method is used to attach the sail to the top of the spanker gaff, same at the bottom and at the top. And remember, when you're reefing the main or the spanker gaff, the entire piece drops down to the boom and is wrapped together, which is quite different when we have staysails. These are held on with a stay, and the top of the sail is very loose, its attachment to the rope, which allows it to slide forward, and then it's folded on the mast here. and this diagram shows it much better. This is fairly loose. You're using these lines to stretch the staysail out, and then when you're going to secure it or drop it, it will simply be pulled back down towards the mast and secured against the mast. When I've got all these ends lined up and the sail sitting very naturally, then I'm going to put in the rings on the mast and then rig the lines on the boom and on the spanker gaff. You'll also notice that all of the lines have had to be slacked off to get this done. So as soon as the sail is properly rigged, then we will start putting on the shrouds on either side and tightening everything up. How I install this is I have a sewing machine needle in one of my handles. I use the thread eye to help get the thread through the needle. Put 2 wraps through the sail and through the ring, and then do a half hitch with 2 or 3 wraps around the first half hitch to keep it tight against the ring, and then put one last half hitch over that, and that seems to hold it nice and tight in place. The jib on the front of the boat, again very loosely held onto the stay, and what happens is you have a tack and a head, and those lines are fairly tight, which gives you strength along the luff of the sail, but the actual attachments are quite loose. This job can be quite tedious. The process is you thread the needle, then push the needle through the sail, then take the thread off the needle, then pull it back through the loop, and then you have to rethread the needle again and then repeat this exercise over and over until of course you reach to the end. There are a few parts where there'll be cleats in the way, maybe a rope coming through the boom. Again, you need to be careful that you don't loop this line over sheets that need to be free and outside of any line that's used to secure the sail to the boom. So take your time, and in no time at all, this entire exercise will be complete. And once that is complete, we go up to the top and do the same thing. I was very lucky because this exercise really came out fantastic. Again, reminding you over and over again that this is really my first time in making a sail. I'm quite sure that as time goes on, I'll get better. We finished with all the lines and very satisfied with how it came out. We have just put some PVA glue so that we can cut off the excess line. Not totally disappointed. Remember, this is my first sail that I've really made. We have a little bit of slack in it, which for those of you who don't know about railboats, this is actually not uncommon. Most sails will have some level of slack in it, and it's only when the wind fills the sail that you get the nice clean shape. From a model's perspective, of course, I would prefer to have a nice clean flat line. I'm going to try and put a little starch in it and see if I can blow it with a hairdryer. But other than that, I'm going to leave it as it is. I've tightened up all the lines, not extra tight. So just giving you a close-up of it. The pencil lines, which are the false joins of the sailmakers, the rolls of cloth, I think look pretty good. That line at the top is an error. I was going to reduce the size of the sail to get it to fit, and then I couldn't get it back out, so I'm afraid it's there. Next sail is going to be the Gaff Top Seal, and perhaps the only little challenge is cutting this piece because the cloth tends to want to fray, and it's going to be very difficult to bend this piece here to do the lap over. The rest of it is relatively straightforward. We will put a rope on the bottom and we'll put a rope on this side. We won't have any rope in the leech of the sail. You're going to find as the sail size gets smaller, it becomes more difficult, and the possibility of making an error becomes much easier. So again, taking your time. That curved section really gave me a lot of trouble. And one of the errors I made, you can see it here, is the PVA glue was a little too thick. The only purpose of the glue is to stiffen everything up and hold it in place. Here I'm using the monocoat iron, which is turning out to be a fantastic tool that I had from my remote control airplane kit. And here we are cutting the cloth to do some of those compound curves. Some of them are convex, some of them are concave. That is probably not the correct way to do it, as I found out in the end. And it's better to stick cloth onto cloth rather than try and make these curves. There are quite a few things wrong with this sail. Obviously the first one is that it doesn't fit properly. But because I used the watered down PVA, when I was using the iron, it actually burnt and stained it, and then it marked the iron, so that clearly the solution is that when I make this up for the next one, I mustn't use any glue in the beginning while I get all the folds correct, and then only put the glue at the very end. So this is my second attempt, and we'll see how it goes. The first thing I've done is I put a sock onto the iron to make sure that the iron doesn't come in contact with the glue itself. And then I have made all the folds and pressed them down, and there's no glue here whatsoever. So with the exception of the curve here, which I'm going to stick as a flat piece, simply because I won't be able to fold it properly. I'm not going to have any of the issues that I had with the first one. We have two cringles, which we've tied into the rope and whipped. One is on the tack and the other one is on the clew. At the head we'll leave a piece of rope which we're going to tie a single block onto, a single hole block. Of course, now I've learned my lesson, and I'm using very, very thin watered down PVA glue to make sure that all the glue does is keeps the seam intact. Let's take a look at the last piece. We stuck this little piece on last night. I'll put a little bit of watered down glue on the edge, and I'll get a cleaner line. We're much happier with the sail. So all that's left to do is to put the lines on it, the block on it, and install it in the model, which we'll cover in the next video. And then we'll go on to the middle staysail, which is really called the fore gaff sail, and that should be relatively straightforward. So we'll see you in the next video.